So guys, today we have Kelly Troup on the show, and if you want to find her on Instagram, she has a very cool username, The Real Food Revel, REVOL, which I assume means revolution. You kind of need to have like a background music when you walk in. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Kelly Troup from The Real Food Revolution. That's cool, right? But welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. Good. Thanks for having me.
You just got back from the woods picking wild strawberries from your stories. I was watching you. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm all about educating people to kind of eat seasonally. And, right now the berries are in season. And what I had in my hand was just a small handful. And literally that's all I found, probably the size of maybe 2 strawberries in a grocery store. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's important that people actually go out and see what kind of food they can find and gain a relationship to how nature gives us food.
Yes, and they're probably more bitter than those big hybridized ones in the stores, which the bitterness actually has a lot of health benefits too. People don't think about. I remember when I was growing up in Florida, we had this dirt road that went behind our neighborhood. So we would always go out on that dirt road and walk along the edge, and there would be wild blackberries. And we would do the same thing. We would walk down, and thankfully there was a bunch of them that if we went all the way down, we could get a whole bucket full of them if we wanted them. But we'd go down, a few feet, grab a few, prick our fingers a little bit from the briars, and then pop them in our mouth. Wouldn't even worry about pesticides or anything like that. It was wild berries. It's cool.
Yeah, I'll have those in about another month or so. And there's just so much great things from food that we get from the wild. The water is actually structured. So you're actually getting hydrated while you eat fruit in its natural habitat versus going to the store. And I don't know how long that water keeps that structure once it's been picked. So, just fun stuff, always fun stuff.
It's good stuff. Well, guys, she's a Primal health coach. Has been carnivore, primal, keto since 2013. So you're one of the long timers like me. It's been out there. You're all about good fats, real food, whole body healing, and the lifestyle. She's got a website, The Real Food Revel, REVOL.com. And I was so excited when you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, I'm Kelly," and you started telling me about yourself, and I'm like, I love every part of that, Kelly. Let's come on the show and talk. So tell us a little bit of your backstory. How did you come across the primal? I assume Mark Sisson kind of got you interested in kind of a primal way of eating, and then it just morphed into more keto and all the other things you're doing now?
No, actually, I was
that's his term. That's his term is primal. That's why I was wondering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was where I first got educated, was with the primal. But I'd already known a lot going into his program. But I started out, I worked for an endocrinologist, and I was just angry. Angry in the sense that I was eating 1,200 calories a day, working out 5-6 days a week, all the cardio, because that's what they teach us women, to go do cardio to be, fit and healthy. And I was eating whole grains. I was trying to eat all this healthy food, and I had 50 pounds I need to lose from having kids. And I lost maybe 10 in 3 or 4 months. And so I was griping to the doctor I worked for, because I do ultrasound for a living. And I was explaining to him, I just don't get it. What do I, this is like slavery to get 10 pounds off. I feel defeated, and I'm tired of this routine already. And he goes, well, you're probably inflamed. You're not going to lose weight if you have inflammation. And I said, oh, okay. So he ran a whole panel on me, and I was inflamed. I was metabolically sick. I had hyperinsulinemia, polycystic ovaries. My cholesterol was way out of whack. And so he basically just looked at me and gave me the most simple advice. He's like, you can either cut the carbs or you can go on metformin. And I was like, I don't know, was I late 20s? I'm not going on metformin. So I cut the carbs, and it took some learning curve. Some of the first people I found in the community were you and Maria Emmerich, and I started following them to just kind of learn different ways I could still eat like a normal person back then. Now I don't care. Everybody can stare if they want to, but that's how I kind of navigated to the lifestyle. And then I found Mark Sisson and kind of enrolled as a primal health coach. But I had turned everything around. The metabolic probably turned around within 30 days, and I felt like a whole person. Like, I was somebody who needed 10 hours of sleep. I was somebody who, you had to kick me out of bed at like 9:30. And I'd probably go to bed at 9:30 the next night. And all of a sudden I'm up at 7 and I'm ready to go and I've got some energy. And I'm like, who is this person? Because my whole life I had been labeled lazy. And I had, like, my mom feels bad about it now because I was just sick and I didn't know, And I think wheat was a big one for me, that the inflammation that was caused by that caused a lot of my inflammation. But yeah, and that started the whole journey to crazy.
Yeah, well, crazy good, and crazy healthy, and it's wonderful. They can call me all the names they want. I'm preaching good stuff that's helping people, so I feel no shame in my crazy. That's amazing with that doctor, because I've interviewed a lot of doctors who used to push the old standard conventional wisdom when it came to nutrition, and then they had their eyes awakened by patients who came in and kind of did this on their own and taught them. That's amazing. Your doctor already knew about carbohydrate restriction. Was it somebody we would know?
No, he's just a small town doctor in Erie, Pennsylvania. A brilliant man. I mean, he reads a lot on his own. I can say that he got me where I am, but I'm probably turning around and schooling him at this point. I went to see him a couple of years ago and my cholesterol was out of whack again. And he looked at me and said, Kelly, statins, you're a hyperabsorber. And we kind of got into a tiff about it. And I was like, I'm not a hyperabsorber. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that mean? So he broke down my panel and explained that I had plant sterols in my bloodstream. And I'm like, what are a plant sterol? So then I start looking it all up and realize it's plant cholesterols from eating plants, and they're not supposed to be in your bloodstream because we don't really need them. So we just kind of excrete them, right? And so I'm like looking at it and I'm just shaking my head and I'm like, how, like, my genes don't say that I have cholesterol issues. Like, I've done all this stuff just for fun, And so I'm kind of looking and I pull out my old one from back when I still ate the standard American diet before I took his first round of advice. And I wasn't a hyperabsorber then. So then I'm like, okay, it's not a gene, it's the environment. Something happened. What changed? And it ended up, long story short, being I had leaky gut from having infections. And so that was letting everything into my bloodstream. Yeah. And that's why I appeared as a hyperabsorber. And the cholesterol was really a result of, again, inflammation that I had in the body from infections and things getting into the bloodstream that weren't supposed to be there.
I've got something very similar, not leaky gut, but I had higher cholesterol. And I was told, oh, you have familial hypercholesterolemia. So I shell out the $1,300 to get the Ambry genetics test to see if I have familial hypercholesterolemia, because I was writing a book about it. Cholesterol Clarity is here somewhere. And so in preparation for this book, I ran that test, 5% chance, which means no, I don't have familial hypercholesterolemia. And so I started doing an investigation. I was doing a speaking tour in Australia, and this holistic dentist said, you have high cholesterol. And I was like, how would you know that? He said, because he could see my teeth, and they weren't good. And he said, oh, you got where you had root canals. I can see it. I can see you've got mercury fillings. I can see that. You've got higher cholesterol because all of those things are inflaming your body. You're probably infected where those root canals were, and the mercury poisoning is starting to raise your inflammation. And I'm like, holy crap. So I come back home. I find a holistic dentist locally. $12 later, I got all the mercury out, replaced with good, clean stuff. They had hazmat suits on, coming in and removing all that and they like protected me, and all that was open was just my mouth. And they got all that out. And then they pulled all the teeth and cleaned up the infections that were in my teeth. And do you know, Kelly, within 6 months, my cholesterol dropped 100 points. Like, it's that easy, that simple. Yet how many doctors go, oh, have you been to see your dentist lately? When you have high cholesterol. No, they just pull out you're a high absorber. And it's like, I wish that all of these medical modalities could talk to each other and understand the role that leaky gut, that teeth problems, that all these other issues that could impact something like cholesterol. It would be so good if they could just have that totality of knowledge. But your poor doctor is being taught pharmaceutical in med school, so they don't know how to teach patients.
Yeah, so I have a similar story with that too. My cholesterol was 400, And again, I had those infections and everything, but because of those infections, because everything's related, my dental health was going to crap. I needed a crown over here. I had one already back here. I didn't have a root canal, but I went to a holistic dentist that took out as much of it as possible and then put a composite in and did like a laser to kill the bacteria. But after I got that dental work done, I dropped 200 points. And so everybody, like my neighbor was saying they had cholesterol issues. I'm like, have you been to the dentist lately? Because like it's really sometimes something that simple. And a month later, he was getting a crown in, and I said, oh, check your cholesterol in like another, month and see how it is. And he tilted his head because he'd forgotten what I had told him. And so that happens a lot because a lot of us have bad teeth, and it could be a simple dysbiosis of the gut that can cause that without like an infection like C. diff or something crazy. Just that imbalance can cause heart disease. You can eat the best diet you can, and if you have a dysbiosis in your gut, you might have problems.
Yeah, I mean, even Weston A. Price and all the great work that he did looking at traditional cultures, he's a dentist. And the first thing that he noticed about their chronic disease was their teeth health. And so if your teeth are shot and you have health issues, it could be that was your first sign. You just ignored it. And this is something I know you wanted to talk about here today of even when you heal, there's still little signs of things that maybe you need to pay attention to. But people go, well, I'm way better than I was. So almost all the way healthy is just as good as being all the way healthy. And that could lead to problems down the road.
Yeah, and that's what draws me to you, because you've tried, the carnivore, the keto, you've gone through all the routes too, and you're not afraid to just be all in it, and just tell people about your journey, good or bad, and experiment. And a lot of times with these groups, because we feel community, and that's so important to us as a human species, we get stuck there. Like, oh, I have all my carnivore friends, I have all my keto friends, and they get me and they get what I'm doing. And then you have like the oddballs out there like you and I that get all the rap because we're like, well, I went and had some berries this morning, or I'm going to tell you to dig deeper because that acne you have, that's not normal. Or the fact that you have gas, that's not normal. Or the fact that you still have bloating, like you're ignoring it because it's better than it was before, and you really have something underlying that could be going on. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Our trials is what makes us great coaches or influencers in this community. If you can get people to listen, because if you're outside the box, they don't want to listen. But I'm like, I was getting sick again. I was getting bloated. I was getting, my face was breaking out terribly. And I couldn't figure it out. So I'm like, that's when I started like really pounding the veggies. Like maybe I'm not eating enough veggies. And I wasn't feeling better, and that's when I had that blood work and realized my gut was leaky and removed the veggies. And all of a sudden I'm carnivore again, which I probably was when I first found this lifestyle, because it was easy and I didn't have to track anything. So I kind of resorted back to my beginning ways and I felt better. And that was great, but I still wasn't right. I still wasn't going to the bathroom every day, which we need to do to detox and get rid of excess hormones and everything else. And I still was having like the face breakout, but I was able to function. Because before that I was going to the ER. Like I was so backed up. I think I took like magnesium citrate enough to rock it to the moon. Like I should have made it to the moon because it had been a week since I had gone, and I took so much.
So those of you that don't know, magnesium citrate is the one that if you are constipated.
Keto Chow is a customizable shake mix that is also perfect for cooking and baking, giving you simple, nutritionally perfect meal options. Keto Chow. Make keto easy. Discover your favorite flavor at jimmylovesketochow.com.
That's the version. It's basically a laxative.
Yes. Yeah. And the doctors were like, no, you're fine. I thought I had like, obstruction or impact or something. They're like, no, you're fine. Just go home, eat more fiber. I'm like, fiber makes me feel like crap. I'm not going to go home and eat fiber. And so I'm just frustrated. And a friend of mine had said to me, Kel, like, you don't have the same sickness that you had last time. So food might just not fix it. And you need to like, go get help. And I was like, but like, I hate feeling sick and being a coach because first of all, everyone's looking at me like, why are you sick? You eat so good, And I'm like, well, I don't know. So I reached out to functional medicine and, he did well for me in the sense he opened my eyes to what else could be wrong. We ran a bunch of labs. I did a stool test and he was really able to break that stool test down for me because the first one I had, it just looked like dysbiosis. He goes, yeah, but like your Clostridium's kind of high. So we need to break that up because it can be good, but it can also be bad. So we broke it up and found, a pathogenic one. It wasn't C. diff, but we did notice that was probably part of the problem. And he set me along the way of like doing antimicrobials for about 3 months. I think I had a parasite blastocystitis hominis too. And my field out there that I love so much, they put cow poop in it, and I think it runs into my well. And so I kind of figured out how this all happened to a degree, and I went on my path of the 3 months of antimicrobials, and then I was going to do 3 months of gut healing. I'd modified the protocol he gave me to be specific to what I had, like the blastocystitis and stuff like that. Because there are just some things I felt were kind of basic and strategic in his protocol, and I wanted to like get in there and get personal with it, with my own symptoms and problems. And 3 months later, I felt great, probably sooner than that. But I had been so sick that I ended up with autoimmune. So all these infections, all this stuff I had going on, I had lupus. So I was at my breaking point when I reached out to him, to the point, like, I work 10 hours a day and I do ultrasound. It's not physical. I mean, it is a lot of EMFs, but I'd come home and crash on the couch. Like, I could not life. Like, I'm like, kids, make yourself dinner, because I'm done. And it shouldn't be that way, So later on, I decided I'm going to go to functional medicine, health coaching, and I want to be able to do this for other people because I had all these things wrong. And we do an oats test, like an organic acids test. And that is where I found the C. diff. Now, mind you, the traditional doctors did a colonoscopy, didn't find the C. diff. The stool test, I've had 2 of them, no signs of the C. diff. And then I do this urine, and the urine finds my C. diff. And it was just below normal when I got tested. So I had just gotten it down to a point it wasn't causing me symptoms, but I still had my work cut out to get it down even lower so that it doesn't bother me. And that's when my brain went off, that I had a surgery 4 years ago for varicose veins. And he wanted to put me under for it. And I did it at a small hospital that I knew better than to do it at, because I'd heard that they were kind of bad about infections. But I was like, it's a venous ablation. Like, what are they going to do? But my incisions kept pussing up. And I called him and I'm like, hey, like, this ain't normal. And he's like, no, just keep taking the antibiotics I gave you. Now I know better. Back then I was just trying to be a good patient. I took my antibiotics. I said, they're not working though. Like, because antibiotics, normally you get worse for 24 hours and then complete difference. Like, the inflammation should be down. That wasn't happening. So he switched the antibiotics. So completely wiped out my gut bacteria, and the C. diff was able to take hold. So that's where it started. And then because I ate so healthy, 4 years later, that's when I was just flatlined. Like, had the lupus, couldn't function, was so backed up, couldn't have regular bowel movements, and I had to reach out for help. But I think all of that was a great learning curve. And so that's why I scream at everybody, like, stop thinking that this is okay and normal, because I mean, there's so many infections. There's mold. I mean, there's mold from our grain diets that we had years ago. There's mold from our environment. There's Lyme disease. There's C. diff. There's Epstein-Barr, which is mono, guys. Like, Epstein-Barr sounds fancy, but it's mono. How many people had mono when they were 12, 13? Oh, I did, So it sets us up for, needing to treat our lifestyles different. Like, even just from having Epstein-Barr at 10, that never goes away. That's always underlying. And if you let your immune system drop, it can resurface, just like Lyme can resurface. It's a really hard thing to eradicate completely. And we're not meant to eradicate everything completely. We're meant to live with it. And we need to have the good to balance the bad, essentially, the balance of life.
I love what you're outlining here, Kelly, because a lot of people, when they look at their health, especially in our world, your nutrition, your exercise, maybe your sleep and stress are all get lip service. We don't talk about things like mold. We don't talk about things like gut bugs. We don't talk about things like heavy metal toxicity, where things like chelation therapy can be helpful. What's really fascinating to me is one of the biggest champions of all of these, like, behind the scenes things in your health. Going to shock some people. It was Dr. Atkins. Like, he's known for his diet, but he was way ahead of the curve on understanding removing heavy metals, getting rid of mold. He had a book called Dr. Atkins' Health Revolution. If you've never read it before, read it, because it's got all these things you're talking about here. And this is in the early 70s he was writing about this. And now everybody's, we're just now finding out. No, we've known for a long time. We just ignored it, all at the holy altar of, it's got to be your diet that's the reason why you're fat.
Yeah, and I was a premature baby, so I was like 4 weeks early, and it used to be tradition. I'm not sure if it still is, where they gave you antibiotics right out of the gate because you were so early. They didn't want any chance of infection with you. So right there, my gut health is severely impacted just from the gate. So even if you've had the first 2 years of life, I think they're saying that you're more prone to autoimmune and issues if you've had antibiotics. So I start there, and then I'm formula fed. So then again, I don't get probiotics. I'm not nursed.
Were you also C-section?
No, I did miss that one. There's the one point I got.
C-section also doesn't allow you to get the full microbiome as well. So these are all things nobody talks about. These things. I was a C-section baby. I came a month late. You were a month early. I came a month late. My mom had me in 10 months. This was in the early 70s when I was born. But so by the time I came out, I was like 11 pounds and couldn't go through the canal. So it was like ripping mama open and getting me out. So I was doomed from the start. I already had her insulin resistance genes. Then I didn't get the proper gut microbiome. And by the time I was 25, I had done about 30 to 40 rounds of antibiotics because they just pop out anytime you get a little sniffle. Oh, take the Z-Pack. I heard on the sports radio just this morning, oh, well, just take a Z-Pack if you're not feeling well. And I'm going, is it like Tic Tacs? Or are we just going to give out antibiotics like they're nothing?
Yeah, and I was like, I had every ear infection, possible. I had seasonal allergies, like every fall when the kids would go back to school. I don't know if it was goldenrod or ragweed or what it was, but man, I would be down for the count. And I would take a Z-Pack because my doctor would know, oh, your sinuses are backed up because of your allergies and you need your Z-Pack because it's already gone too far. And I do this for years. I have not had allergies since I started this way of life. I don't get them in the fall. I function completely normal. I don't get the sniffles. I might sneeze once, but like nothing like I used to. And it's from all the healing and just having the nutrients that I need and understanding what my body needs. Like I will probably never go off probiotics, never ever, because I know that my gut microbiome is sensitive. A little bit of stress might tax it out. So I just always support it. And I do that with, Megaspore, and I do seed probiotics, and then I do my immunoglobulins, and I'm fine with that. So
some people, Kelly, get so used to not feeling optimal that when they do some small change, like some of the things that you did some big changes, but even just some of the small changes you said, within 30 days you could even sense that things turn around metabolically for you. It's when you start to feel better that you realize just how bad you put up with feeling bad for so long. And this is why I think people aren't always apt to change so quickly. We can see on the outside something's not quite right, but they've become so accustomed to that less than optimal that it's become their new normal.
Right. And people are so afraid of failure. Like, everyone looks at some of the habits I do now and they're like, oh my God, that's so much. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm like, just start. Just start with minor things and make micro adjustments. And if you mess up, just make your next move better. Like, don't do the whole self-sabotage. We are terrible at self-sabotage. Like, oh, I messed up, so I might as well just binge eat the rest of the day. No, don't do that. Don't beat yourself up emotionally. Just be like, oh, you know what? I can do better next time. It's all about mindset too,
Well, cumulative effects of lots of little things. I think people say, well, today I did this and I didn't feel anything. I'm like, okay, but do it today, do it tomorrow, do it the day after that, 3-4 weeks from now, tell me how you feel. Because like you can't expect to work out one time and go, oh, I can't lift like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right?
It's muscle.
So, yes, it's crazy, the thought pattern. Or like when people start keto, well, I felt so bad after the first day. I'm like, yeah, because you're adjusting your body to a new way of eating. You have to kind of let the body get through that period of time of adjustment. But when you get on the other side of it, it's beautiful. And I saw this when I had my initial weight loss in 2004. I went on the Atkins diet. I went from, and I did the numbers later. I ran the numbers of what I used to eat. It was like 1,500 to 1,600 grams of carbs I was eating a day, mostly Coca-Cola and junk food. Then I went to 20.
Yeah, it's a big change.
That hurt for about a week, Kelly. And I remember the first few days I was just laying on the couch. But it was because that was a dramatic change. And I came on the other side of that. And since then, I haven't looked back. And it's just amazing to me that people get caught up in that minutia, that little short period of time. they don't feel great, and they go, oh, this is what I'm going to feel like forever. And I'm like, stick around a while. Like, let's give it 60 to 90 days and then see how you feel. Because I think once people get a little bit of reinforcement that what they're doing is doing something positive, then they have the buy-in factor.
Yeah, it was like when I dropped like 10 pounds in 1 week, which was probably mostly water weight. I was just like, I'm done. I'm sticking. I'm never leaving this again. I have energy, whatever. This is it. Because I'd worked so hard just to lose 10 pounds. When I saw it disappear in a week, I was like, woohoo, let's go. And I started so terribly. Like, I would go to Wendy's and be like, give me the double baconator without the bun. What can I do that's simple? I'd go to the gas station and get a bag of cheese curds. Like, there's like 500 calories in a thing of cheese curds, right? And I did what I was convenient because that's all I knew. I was just trying to keep it simple so I could stick to it. And then as the years went, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I think I was out on vacation somewhere and it was like really expensive to go to the grocery store because it was a tourist town. And I found a farm outside of town and we got a pork chop and we brought it back and I tasted it. I'm like, oh my God, this actually tastes like a pork chop from my childhood. Like, and I realized how much nothing in the store had flavor like that anymore. And I was like, I should look into why, and that's how these like balls start rolling. And I'm like, oh, I want my food to have flavor. Right. So now I go to the farm and, oh, that's so much better because if you know what they do to pigs, you're like, yeah, I want the one that's out in the woods eating acorns and watermelons,
I get all of my meats now from the farmer's market I go to here where I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And there's a farmer that they do everything the right way. Grass-fed, grass-finished, pastured pork, all the things you were just talking about. And then they have like a professional smoker add smoke to like some of the bacon. And there's this pork loin. In fact, I got some in my fridge over there. And I like buy them out.
Pork loin kick.
What's that?
I saw you were on a pork loin kick the other day.
I got a new air fryer and then I found this pork loin. And so between the air fryer and the pork loin, and people are like, did you add butter to it? I'm like, no, that's the natural juices. It's so good. But yeah, it's amazing the difference in flavor. And then you're getting a higher quality of food. This is something that's kind of been debated for many years within the keto space. And, well, food quality doesn't matter. I was like, oh yeah? Want to bet? Like, yes, it's better than junk food to have conventional meats, but if you can afford and try to fit them within your budget, I've got meats for a whole week, like meat every day. I've got the pork loin, I got bacon, I've got some beef strip, I've got all kinds of meats in there that for a week's worth of food, it's about $50 and it's higher quality. All of it's very high quality. And I can eat that and I can be satisfied with that. I'm mostly carnivore, by the way, so don't really add a lot of things. I might have an avocado now and again, a little bit of vegetables now and again, but it's not regular. It's mostly meat-based because that's how I feel the best. And it's funny, all the excuses people have. Well, I can't do that, therefore I'm going back to the junk food diet. I'm like, what? Like, what? Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah. My favorite is I can't give up bread. I'm Italian. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, that is the lamest excuse. I mean, I've got Native American in me, but like, I really can't just, say that I can't give up my fry bread. Like it's a food, and the relationship that you have with it emotionally, just because you think it's your heritage. It's not the food that your heritage ate. Like, the food that we get in the store is not what my ancestors ate or your ancestors ate. None of this is real anymore. And you look up something like corn and you see that it was like a grass. And then you look at corn today and you're like, this is a total different ball game, folks. This is not the same food,
Yes, I think about like some of the Hispanic people. Well, I can't give up my empanadas and I can't give it because they're cultural foods. But what's fun?
Tacos and margaritas.
I'm sorry, what?
I said tacos and my margaritas, yeah.
Yes, and so, yeah, exactly. And so a lot of people have made like keto versions of some of these things. Really, really cool. If you look for it, you can find that you'll keep the cultural foods, but make them healthier, which I'm all in favor. I'm not generally in favor of having replacement cookies, replacement cakes, replacement for all the high carb foods. But I think in that case, if that's such a cultural thing, it lets you partake in the custom without having to partake in the things that would be detrimental to your health. And I know you mentioned you're part Native American. Which Indian tribe?
Shoshone.
Excellent.
Have you heard of them?
No, I've heard of Choctaw, and Cherokee is close to here where I live. Yeah, but no, I haven't heard of that one.
It's a small tribe out in Wyoming. They were Plains Indians that I think we were from what my understanding is, but I know very, very little. It's actually one of my things that I'm working on, tracking down heritage, just because I want to know. I had a great grandfather who I can't find him on Ancestry before he was 50, like at all. And it's like I can trace everyone else back to the boat. I can't find him. And he's the one that's supposed to be full-blooded Native American. And I got into the hippy dippy, went to see a psychic just for fun, and she pulled him in. And it was like this kind of really neat thing because she had started the conversation with, if does anyone have a family member who had to jump off a train to start their life? And we all just kind of went, no, you know. And so she kept talking, and as she was talking and going through the paternal lineage and the fact that it was weird that it was a great grandfather and not a grandfather, because it's a little far back of a stretch for her usually, she pretty much nailed the fact that it was my ancestors, the way she was talking about things that I would only know, how my family butted heads, you know, the males in that family. And she even brought in that my father was kind of stubborn, and she was thankful that, or he was thankful that I deal with him differently than they had dealt with each other in the past. And so it was really kind of cool. But when I looked it all up, where you could jump off a train was a town that she sent me to, was Altoona. And she had said to look for a church there, but I looked up, found the train track, and it's like a horseshoe. So if you're going to jump off a train, you would jump off there because it would have to slow down. But the train track that goes through Altoona would also go from South Dakota all the way to Carlisle, which was an Indian whitewashing school that we have here in Pennsylvania that was pretty serious. And so they would, you know, horse the Indians up to South Dakota, put them on a train and bring them here to supposedly better their lives. And that could have been very well where he got a start. So it's one of my journeys this summer to try to figure all that out. But it kind of opens up the door to me that I think of the Native Americans as the people that nobody thinks about. There's a lot coming out right now in Canada about how Canada treated these people, and they killed them and they tortured them and they did experiments on them, and people never got their family members back. And everybody thinks of Germany and Nazis, but they never think of the genocide that we had here for Native Americans. And these people are still out there, and they're trying to save their culture, and we keep taking more and more, and it bothers me. It's I didn't live it, but I feel their pain. And I see these people, you know, whatever your feelings are about the vaccine, but they're listening to our advice. They're listening to the people that betrayed them, that killed their buffalo, that took their land, that won the war. Like, I get it, but they're listening to their advice now. Like, it's for them. And I always want to just shake everyone. I want to be like the white person that comes in and say, like, I just need you to listen to me for 5 minutes, because the Native Americans are genetically more disposed to having diabetes than any other nationality when you look at the numbers. And you see a lot of them, and they are heavier, and they do have health issues, and their immune systems are not firing on all cylinders. And we lost a lot of elders due to COVID. But like, if somebody could got in there and just like kind of brought back their heritage, like, you know, what did your people eat? How did you eat? You know, did you eat with the seasons? Did you get outside? Did you go barefoot? Are you guys doing that anymore? Because I don't see it, you know, and I would love to just bring that back, you know.
Just over a decade ago, I interviewed this guy named Dr. Jay Wortman, who is in Canada, and he was working with the First Nations tribe there in that area, I think in Vancouver, Canada, where he tried to get them back to their ancestral diet. I remember very vividly, they did a whole documentary on it called My Big Fat Diet, and it was talking the fatty diet that they grew up on. And I remember in the documentary, it had Steve Finney and Jeff Folek and different people in there as well. Eric Westman, all looking at like, what did they eat in their traditional diet? And one of the things was this fish called ulakin. And so they would take the fish and they would, you know, put it in a little processing thing, and they would extract the fat from the fish. And so it was called ulakin grease. And they would literally put the grease on everything they ate, which was real good. was pretty cool because it was like the precursor to like the high fat diet that keto became now, but they just knew it instinctively that they felt good on this fish fat. And so it's amazing. And I know you're trying to kind of restore some of the ancestral diet of the Native Americans, and how if they got back to that, yes, it would improve their immune system, improve the propensity for type 2 diabetes. And you're right, they are at high risk for that, which by extension of that also heart disease, all of these things that are ravaging those tribes, and they are forgotten. So thank you for bringing it up today.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And the Shoshones actually did a study too, where they brought people back to their diet, and COVID kind of messed that up because they were following it for like 3 or 4 months, and they were going to show the improved markers, and they got to it a little bit, and then they were going to write a cookbook about like what their traditional diet is, and it actually preserves culture too. So it's a win-win. You get improved health, and you're teaching the younger generations before you're gone, before we're so out of touch with what we were. And my favorite saying is, we are an animal, and we need to put the human animal back in its environment, put it outside, put it in nature. You don't think about things like we slept on the ground and we got to ground while we were sleeping. You know what I mean? You don't think about things about like you were breathing in probiotics because you were outside so much and playing in the dirt. Like, I mean, I eat the strawberries with dirt on my hands. I don't even care, but we just don't think about those things, and it can be overwhelming to think about those things. But I think the more people get outside and get that relationship with what we once were, some of it will start flowing back in, and then you'll read something and you'll be like, oh, that's why that feels good. That's why I enjoy that. Like just getting out and getting the sunrise in the morning. And it does so much for you hormone wise. Like, you see the sunlight, it triggers your hormones, it elevates your cortisol, and that's your cup of coffee, folks. That's your energy for the day. And I still like my coffee. Don't get me wrong. It's a nostalgia thing, but really all I need to do is go outside and watch the sunrise, and go out midday and get my vitamin D, and go out in my evening and get my red light and my healing sun, and kind of start my sleep cycle. And it's just like, and it feels good, and it's good to be outside, and we love it, and the sky's pretty, and you can even get it in the clouds, but like all these things had purpose, and I feel like we just need that relationship so much, and we live in this artificial cave, and I just want to say, go back to your environment, like put the human back in its environment. And intuition's a real thing, and we are like really the only species that's confused about what to eat. Like I have a cat, we were talking about the cats, and when she was pregnant, I was looking at her and she's whining for food, and I'm like, all right, so I put a bowl of fat down, I put a bowl of meat down, and I put a bowl of her grain-free kibble down on the floor. She ate all the fat first until it was gone, and then she went to the meat, and then she never touched the grain kibble or the grain-free kibble. So like she knows what she needs. She's a mom, she's pregnant, she needs, all the calories to, be able to supply for these unborn babies, and she went right for the fat, so that's great to see.
What's fascinating about animals, they are so instinctive about what they want. I've got 13 backyard chickens, and so I'm all the time back there barefoot, sometimes stepping in some shit. Okay, that's what happens. I think that's why my immune system's probably pretty good, is I exposed myself to pathogens, not like that cow patty you had exposed to. That was not a good way to do it, but but I get the sunshine, I'm grounding, I'm around the chickens and the chicken noises and the cicadas, talking in the background. It's a beautiful kind of sight. But like I find myself like I can feel stress just like released from the body when you're in that state. And you're right. Seeing the sun at different times of the day sets the circadian rhythm in your mind. And so I sleep really well, track it with the Oura ring. Like you get nerdy, don't you? You get nerdy when you're so dialed into your health, even if you still have stuff to work on. And I do. I celebrate that I do pretty fucking well. Like I'm not ashamed of my sleep. Like I post it every day on my Instagram stories. I challenge anybody to tell me that they could do better. Like, but most days it's pretty badass.
Yeah, I climbed a mountain with another Primal health coach last July, and it was like after I did my 3 months of antimicrobials, and I felt like the lupus was gone, but I had no confirmation testing wise, but I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, I'm going to give it a go. I might quit a quarter way up this mountain, but I'm going to try it, and we'll see where it goes. So we hiked the day before to see what I had, and I did all right. And then we hiked 11 miles into where we were going to camp before we hit summit. And the morning we get up for summit, I check my Aura ring and I'm like, listen, bud, my readiness is at like 20%. Like that 11 miles in was no joke. And I said, I'm going to give it all I got, but I know I'm dying. And my immune system did take a hit. I mean, I felt it. God, I felt it. But I did. I powered up to at least, I think I got to like 13,000 in elevation. I did not make summit because I knew that if I made summit, which I could make it there, I was not making it back down the mountain. And I literally had like a mental breakdown halfway down the mountain because I was slipping. And like my partner was standing and he's like, Kel, you just need to like slide a little bit. I'm like, if I slide, just like, what if I don't stop, you know? And he's like, do you need a hug? And I'm like, I do need a hug. And he gave me a hug and I moved on with my day and we made it back down. And I like, as soon as I got back to camp, I just flatlined. I didn't even want to eat. Like I didn't want food, but I figured my body needed nutrients. And we had like packs of sardines. We had Epic bars. I think I took some oysters along the way too. And we just like macked out, but I only ate like 800 calories. And my expenditure had to be up there. I mean, I was not eating enough, but, and then I was definitely ready for a nap, but it was crazy. Like I climbed a mountain on 20%, but I felt every minute of it. But you do get this relationship where like, I don't feel good today. And then you check your Aura ring and you're like, oh, I'm only at like 60% today. What did I do? You know, I need to recover today. And I think that makes everything better. Because then if I'm going to work out, I'm like, oh, not today. Today I'll walk or do yoga. And then tomorrow when I'm at like 90%, then I'll do some weight training or do something that's strenuous. But yeah, it's fun.
It's great that we have all these biohacking tools at our availability now. And I'm pushing the Aura all the time. They're not a sponsor or anything. I think it's a fantastic product, and it's like $400 or $500 for the really nice one. I don't even know what the cheaper one is now. I've worn it for since the beta test, when it was looked like a class ring. The original one looked like a class ring, could barely hold the charge 12 hours. You had to keep recharging it all the time. This one stays charged for like 3-4 days. It's beautiful. So, but yeah, so those kind of things, you know, they're intangibles. They're things that people don't think about that they can add to their healthy lifestyle. And again, thank you for kind of underscoring that it's so much more than the nutrition. I try to articulate things like red light, like cold thermogenesis, like HIIT training, like all these little extra things, but I don't think we can hit them enough.
Yeah. One thing that's cool about the Aura is I actually got it when I was healing from the infections, because one thing I noticed was my sleep was getting disturbed. I'd wake up 2-3 in the morning every day and have trouble falling back asleep. And once I started going through the healing protocol, I wanted to be able to visually watch it improve. And I did. I got to see my sleep improve the whole time I was healing, and I was starting to sleep all night again. And I'm like, that's another sign. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, why? Are you getting too much red light? Are you having an underlying issue? Because that's when you detox, you know? But people just ignore these things and just like, oh, I slept like crap last night, and they don't think about it, you know?
Although I will tell you, I have a really weird sleep schedule. So I'll go to bed 7 o'clock at night, but then I'm up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Like my circadian rhythm isn't necessarily by the sun, which is really fascinating to me, because you would think when the sun goes down is when I would get sleepy, and I turn all the lights down when the sun goes down so I can naturally create melatonin. But then I'm awake. I don't think I've woken up with the sun in years. Like it's always well before the sun comes up. And I feel good. And again, I'm getting good REM and deep sleep, like over 3.5, 4 hours most days. I'm just a very efficient sleeper in a short amount of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have done studies on that. I think Dave Asprey was only sleeping 6 hours a night, and he said that's all he needed. And, you know, and that's what's nice about having the Aura ring is you can kind of track that personally. Like, if all my signs are looking good, then it's good, you know. And one of the other things I love is the red light, the rejuvenator. I got Leanne, I'm trying to remember her last name now, Leanne Vermeer. She has the red rejuvenator, and I love it. I got one in.
Hold on, I didn't hear the last name. Leanne who?
Veneer, I think is what her last name is.
I got you.
Yeah, the red rejuvenator. She studies light, and so I think she's got a different understanding than some of these other companies. And I think her light was like $600. And I
Yeah.
love that thing. I cuddle with it religiously, either in the morning or at night. And I think it just makes such a difference. And like I had
Yeah.
a little bit of sunburn the other day and I sat with it and the next day it turned to tan. And, you know, it definitely, and I've used other brands and I've never had quite the relationship I've had with hers. Like hers is just, it works for me in so many ways. And I don't have a business relationship with her either. I just love her light.
Yeah. Yes, same. And the Juve people sent me one of their full body lights, and I use it a lot as well. It's hard to quantify, other than like your sunburn turning to tan story. It's hard to necessarily qualify it's doing anything. All I know is I'm consistent with it, along with I'm infrared sauna, so I kind of like consistent with it. I'm not as consistent with the ice baths because that hurts. Like it's hard to do an ice bath every single day. But I know it's good for me. I know it's good to kind of lower that basal temperature. But like in my sleep environment, I'll turn down the air conditioner to 65 degrees. I'll make it as pitch black as possible. I'll do all the things, stop drinking, stop eating caffeine or having caffeine at a certain time of the day, blah, blah, blah. All of those things do add up. It just goes to show you kind of have to dial in what you can see and what you can quantify. And so using all of these tools lets you do that.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Again, you guys, Kelly Troup here today, the Real Food Rebel, REVOL. Go check her out over on Instagram. You do also have a Facebook group. Is it the Real Food Rebel there as well?
It is. I've been trying to stay consistent. I've been working on the webpage. I will admit that, like, again, we learned today, technology is not my strong suit. I'm, busy outside in the woods, and I just bought myself a laptop. Like, I don't have use for it, but I'm trying to work on the webpage, trying to get everything beneficial. I'm definitely more of a just talk to me kind of person than, let me run you through my survey and my this and my course. Like, just talk to me. I'd rather get your history because, again, I feel so many people don't, and that's my strong suit.
And this is why you and I get along, because I'm the same way. So, by the way, when she first came on, you guys, she was like, "Hey, Jimmy, how are you?" I was like, "Whoa, hello." I was like, up close. Personal. So she's got a stack of books and a little cup that she's holding it on, and so it's cool. You did well today, my dear. Is this your first ever podcast interview? Been on other people's shows?
I've been a couple. Not on such a scale. I mean, you're epic in the community, obviously. So you're one of the first bigger people I've talked to. I did one with Lone Star, Keto with Amber. So I'm out there. It's hard to get noticed when you're against mainstream, when you have a little bit of a different message, to tell people you're not part of their group if you're a little different sometimes. So.
Well, we're getting your message out today, and I'm really grateful you came on for the show today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Guys, I'm all about healthy nutrition, and I have a brand new product I want to tell you about called Athletic Greens. This is not just a multivitamin. It has 75 essential elements that you want to have in your diet, from probiotics to greens to digestive enzymes to prebiotics. There's so many things that they pack into the Athletic Greens. The main reason why I love them is it puts it all in one place. Like, literally, you'd have to a la carte buy all of these different supplements, and they do it all in one package. So if you go to athleticgreens.com/Jimmy, and you can get a special discount if you go there, and the discount is you get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D, as well as some of their travel packs. Go check it out, you guys. athleticgreens.com/Jimmy.